It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Welcome back to Should You Watch This with the Popcorn Priest. Today we're reviewing First Man from 2018.
These are extraordinary times, and we face an extraordinary challenge. The dramatic achievements in space which occurred in recent weeks should have made clear to us all the impact of this adventure on the minds of men everywhere. Now it is time to take longer strides, time for a great new American enterprise, time for this nation to take a clearly leading role in space achievement, which in many ways may hold the key to our future on Earth. I believe that this nation should commit itself to achieving the goal of landing a man on the moon and returning him safely to the Earth. We set sail on this new sea because there is new knowledge to be gained. Can we help decide whether this new ocean will be a sea of peace or a new terrifying theater of war? But why, some say, the moon? Why climb the highest mountain? We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other thing, not because they are easy, but because they are hard.
Joining me today are reoccurring guest Cole and Taylor, my old buddies from the theater that we... Joining me today are reoccurring guests Cole and Taylor from my... Joining me today are reoccurring guests Cole and Taylor, my old work buddies from the theater. Always a pleasure to have them on the pod. The description for today's film is a look at the life of the astronaut Neil Armstrong and the legendary space mission that led him to become the first man to walk on the moon on July 20th, 1969. Directed by Damien Chazelle from La La Land fame. Top billed stars are Ryan Gosling, Claire Foy, and Jason Clarke. Runtime of 2 hours and 21 minutes. Rated PG-13. Genre on Rotten Tomatoes says adventure comedy. Adventure comedy. Genre on Rotten Tomatoes says adventure, biography. Jeez. Genre on Rotten Tomatoes says adventure, biography, history, drama. Rating from IMDb is 7.3 out of 10 from 166,000 reviews. Rotten Tomatoes gives us an 87% from the critics and 67% from the rest of us. On a $59 million budget, this one made a worldwide box office haul of $105.6 million. Where to watch this right now? You have to buy or rent this one. I couldn't find anywhere where you could stream it for free on any services. Now for should or shouldn't you watch this? 5 reasons why you should watch this. Number 1, if you like historical dramas. Number 2, if you want to see a fairly realistic depiction of what it might have been like during the early space program. Number 3, if you like Ryan Gosling, he does a great job in this as Neil Armstrong. Number 4, if you're a fan of the space program. Number 5, if you want to get a shot of patriotism that feels like it's waning a bit these days. This makes you feel proud to be an American. Apologies to my international listeners for that one. At this point, there may be some spoilers up ahead, so if you want to pause and come back and join us after you watch the movie, I would suggest doing that now. Here's our breakdown of First Man. Popcorn trivia today is Mark Armstrong. Our popcorn trivia today is Mark Armstrong. Why is it so hard to say? Our popcorn trivia today, Mark Armstrong and Rick Armstrong said that First Man was the most accurate portrayal of their father, Neil Armstrong, and their mother, Janet Armstrong. So you got some good endorsements from the kids on this movie. As described by Walter Cronkite, some 20 minutes after the launch, during the last few minutes of ignition, every news teletype machine from The Associated Press, UPI, Reuters, and other non-Soviet news agencies fell completely silent, as the operators had paused to watch the launch on television. For the most part, the world fell silent for the first time in its history because of a single event. This was the first Universal Pictures film to use IMAX cameras, which I find kind of interesting since it comes out in 2018. Can't believe this is the first time they used an IMAX camera. And of the 3 top billed stars, none is from the United States, so they did a good job of making you feel like they were patriotic Americans. Of the 12 men who have walked on the moon throughout the Apollo program, only 2 were civilians, Neil Armstrong and Apollo 17's Harrison Schmitt. All others were active USN and USAF officers. Buzz Aldrin was a USAF colonel, his highest rank before retiring from the Air Force in 1972. The highest military rank attained by Armstrong was Lieutenant, I don't know what this is, LTJG. I'm not in the military, so I apologize for our active duty people who are listening. In the U.S. Navy before resigning his commission in 1960. Armstrong also holds the distinction of becoming the first American civilian in space when he commanded the Gemini 8 mission in 1966. This film won an Academy Award for Best Visual Effects. I for sure support that. Neil Armstrong's famous quote as he stepped on the moon is the subject of historical controversy. The movie quotes accurately what was heard on Earth and in all recordings. That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. Armstrong later revealed that he intended to say one small step for a man, and that he thought he did, but all efforts to extract this from the recording, even with electronics, have been inconclusive. And last but not least, Armstrong's detour to Little West Crater in the film was accurate and not part of the mission plan, and no one really knows what he did there. Some theorized he might have left a trinket of his dead daughter Karen's, but Armstrong denied it. The matter remains a subject of debate since Armstrong was unable to provide his inventory manifest as evidence, and unfortunately the manifest currently sits under seal at Purdue University. Why don't someone go bust open that seal and let's figure that mystery out? How about that? And I want to put that in my popcorn beefs. I didn't have any beefs with this film, but I'm deciding that that's my beef. I want them to break that seal and figure out what he did over in that secret crater. With that, let's jump in today's review of First Man from 2018. Pop, 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 pop. The Popcorn Priest.
You gotta get a wave file and just play that every
I know. I gotta figure out something. Well, we just screened First Man, the riveting story behind the first man mission to the moon. Focuses on Neil Armstrong and the decade leading to the historic Apollo 11 flight. This was Taylor's pick.
Yes.
Cole is slumbering away.
It's like he's been to the moon. That's how tired Cole is. He didn't even get to the moon, he was so tired.
He just flew in from New York, and boy are his arms tired.
Yeah.
This was nominated and won an Academy Award for Best Special Effects. I agree.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know what the other films were up for it, but
this didn't feel CG at all. The way a lot of like Avengers, I think was also nominated in that. It's like,
yeah,
so that's filled with CG and you know it.
Yep.
Whereas this one, I don't know what they did. There's obviously probably CG in there, but it was well blended with a lot of the practical stuff. It feels like they built a lot of really practical sets.
Yeah, it was
a lot of the spacecraft stuff.
And I liked the film grain. It made it feel like
the period work in this was really good. Just the way that everyone looks, just the way that just the way that the color is, there's a filter on it that gives it a good 1960s look. Yeah, there's definitely some good film grain going.
Oh yeah.
Which maybe that's part of it. Maybe that's why CG doesn't stand out.
2 hours and 21 minutes.
Yeah, that's not a short movie.
It was longer than I thought.
Yeah, it was longer than I thought too. I thought it was 2 hours 10. But suits.
Sequences of space were freaking amazing. Really, really cool.
Yeah, it captures a lot of like the rickety nature of the space travel. Like it like, even though you know how it ends, it's still really tense. Like it captures a lot of like the uncertainty and danger of what they were doing. Like just because it's not just the Apollo 11 mission. It's a lot of like the earlier missions that that Neil was a part of.
The scene where he's flying the LEM. On Earth.
Yeah, like
it's really cool.
Yeah, there are some really great sequences. Like the opening sequence where he's flying that like high altitude aircraft. Like it does, like, even though you know how it all ends, you know that it all worked out, and like at least like from the narrative of like history, it looks like it went off without a hitch.
I also liked when they would pull back the camera and show like parts of the spacecraft that are like dented in, like
especially like during
riveted in, and just
like the Gemini stuff, like which is like halfway through it, that like felt so ramshackle. Like the idea that the state of the art was just so like, and it does give you like the thing you don't get from sci-fi, like where you get like a sense of safety with spacecraft. It's like well, they're in the spacecraft, they're safe.
Yeah,
you don't get that at all from this. It's like nothing about it seems safe.
It's like terrifying.
And it's got like all those old electronic switchboards and like flashing lights and like the radio going.
And I liked in that sequence where they're landing and all the alarms are going off, and they're like, we got another one, and they're like, it's okay.
He's like,
turn it off.
Clear that alarm.
And just the sheer amount of stuff going on that they're like, let's just keep going.
Yeah, it seems to be about like probably the best you could do with like a movie, like the way that you get like biopics these days, because it does focus on him like as like a family person that goes over like he has like a daughter early on who passes away. Like it does tend to humanize him, and a lot of like a lot of the tragedy that happens that like I certainly don't think of when I think of like the space program, because you really just think of it in terms of the triumphs. You don't think of like Apollo 1, the Apollo 1 fire and stuff like that. And it's like what they were doing, like the work they were doing was insanely dangerous. And I don't know, it's something if you don't like pay that close attention, which I mean I certainly haven't. You look back, you're like, well, yeah, no, they set out to do it, and they did it, and everything went fine. They survived and came back and lived out the rest of their lives on Earth. And Buzz Aldrin's still alive. So you don't get the other. So there was a lot of people like in that program who didn't survive and weren't on those earlier missions, and so I mean, I'd say it's worth seeing for sure, especially if you're interested in like the I don't know how accurate it is, because I don't know the history enough. I mean, it seems like it's respectful, like enough that they would probably try not to like overly dramatize it, but who knows?
Yeah, and you could definitely fact check it, because a lot of it would.
Yeah, a lot of it
is highly documented.
Like almost like you could probably find some primary source, like for like press conferences. And, I don't know. Apparently, there's bonus features with like Neil Armstrong's son. So yeah, 1,000 stars, 1,000,000 stars.
Yeah,
I'd watch it again.
Yeah, and we ended up getting. Well, Taylor got the red box, and it had the Atmos track, which we're able to experience, and I think it.
Yeah, I really like the soundtrack of this too. It's got like a theremin, focus to like a lot of the main themes.
It kind of reminded me of, not exactly, obviously, because it's not the same, but Interstellar, how they use music to like really.
It reminded me of Interstellar too, although I liked this more than Interstellar, just because of Interstellar's sci-fi stuff that I think.
Yeah, it's way.
Like it accomplishes something similar though with like the terror of space. I think in a lot of ways.
In that scene where they're spinning out of control, and there's those weird kind of sounds that are maybe mechanical sounds, but also probably from an instrument.
Yeah.
It was just like really adds to the tension.
Yeah. No, it's really well made. Like
I like to. There's a lot of actors in there that you don't see for only a little bit, but
There's
they're
a lot of big names, a lot of like a lot of like really famous character actors, which you would expect for a movie like this.
yeah. Well, Taylor gives it 1,000 stars.
1,000 billion stars.
I give it a golden popcorn bucket for sure. It's good, well made, well acted.
It does kind of have like an old fashioned like thing, even though it's like it does feel like new in the way like obviously like it was made recently. It's different than like Apollo 13. Like Apollo 13 is definitely like a product of like the era it came out in, as is this.
Yeah.
But this, like, I don't know, there's something traditional about it in a way that's I don't know, I can't quite pin it down. But like, and maybe that's why it wasn't more acclaimed. It's like, it's good, but it's,
Yeah.
But I don't know, I really like that about it.
Yeah.
I like that it has like that kind of classic structure to it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like really, it's really well shot. And
we would ask Cole, but his face is buried.
yeah, his opinion doesn't matter. He missed half of it.
He probably would give it.
He'd probably give it like 2 stars or 2.5 stars.
2 or 3
I got
stars. Poor guy. Well, any parting thoughts?
No, I haven't seen the guy's other movies that this director's done. I didn't see La La Land. I thought it looked terrible.
Yeah, I also would not want to see that.
I didn't see Whiplash, which I did want to see, and I never got around to it, just because I looked like J.K. Simmons was a force in that movie, but I didn't see it, so this is the first movie I'm seeing by this guy. Yeah.
Yeah. Who is the director?
Damien Chazelle or something like that.
Well, yeah, go see it. However you can consume it.
Yeah, unless you don't think the space program was interesting, in which case you won't like it.
I definitely would recommend not seeing it like on a phone or a tablet. Like,
yeah,
definitely.
It does definitely. I kind of wish I had seen it in theaters in like an IMAX experience, but
yeah, there are sequences that are filmed in IMAX, and you can tell that the scope changes, and it would have been. I mean, I remember when I saw Gravity in IMAX, it was like you see the dot on this giant screen.
It's like space benefits from that scale in a lot of ways.
Yeah, and there's a couple of scenes in here that does the same thing, where you see their
like
spacecraft.
A little module going.
It's just like, wow, that's so tiny. And even they keep it down, and it's almost like a pixel and this big black mass. So it would definitely benefit you to see it on a larger, as large a screen as you can get.
You can rent out a theater, you do that.
But yeah, anyway, we'll catch you next time. Thanks. That is Cole snoring. See you guys. As always, hit me up on the Twitters if you want to interact with the great Popcorn Priest at Popcorn Priest. I respond to every tweet. Next week, we'll be reviewing Cold Pursuit from 2019. As always, thanks for listening. This has been Should You Watch This with the Popcorn Priest. And for Cole and Taylor, thank you for joining us. We'll see you next week.